Nilesh Maheshwari.
Uh, Most people just call me Torrey, and I am a medical device engineer.
What does real healthcare innovation mean to you?
It means let's look at the reality of today.
Ecosystem is doing enough to support all this innovation?
I consider myself a disruptive innovator.
How the PillBot, the whole process, how the PillBot is manufactured.
It's kind of funny.
How did this journey started?
I recently swallowed the 88th PillBot.
That is a very interesting start of the journey.
You can see that it's roughly the size of a human adult fingertip.
So, hello and welcome everyone. I'm Nilesh Maheshwari. The goal of this podcast has always been to spotlight healthcare innovation in a way that inspires all of us. Whether you are an entrepreneur or just someone passionate about the future of healthcare, we want to share experiences and lessons that can help us grow together. And today, I'm thrilled to have a guest who I believe is redefining what healthcare innovation means. Joining me today is Torrey, co-founder of Endiatx, a company that is revolutionizing endoscopy with their product PillBot. So I would like to welcome our guest Torrey, co-founder of Endiatx. Torrey, welcome.
Thank you so much, Nilesh. It's a real honor to be here.
Can you please introduce to our audience?
Absolutely. Most people just call me Torrey, and I am a medical device engineer with a background in aerospace engineering. And after going through several exits in the medical device startup space in the San Francisco Bay Area, I had the opportunity to build a team and incorporate a company to build tiny robots to go inside the human body. And this is really chasing a childhood dream of mine, and possibly a dream of more than just me. I think many people have seen movies and read books where we saw tiny robots, even possibly nano robots, going in the bloodstream. And at Endiatx, we're just trying to make that adventure real. We're trying to take that dream and turn it into medical reality. And we have to be very clear that the work that we're doing right now, it's not on the nano scale. It's not even on the microscopic scale right now. It's basically the size of the tip of your finger. And it's basically a drone that swims around inside the human stomach. But the neat thing is that we think that we are essentially taking the tip of the modern endoscope and transforming that into a capability that could be deployed via telemedicine. And so the idea is for hundreds of millions of people who might be thinking about getting a procedure like an upper endoscopy, where a tube would be slid down into your stomach through the esophagus in a hospital setting. And then the doctor would deflect and rotate that endoscope around to have a look. We're hoping that this product, PillBot, can actually do that through telemedicine. So the idea is perhaps a patient could actually be at home and be able to be on a Zoom call with their doctor, kind of like we're on a call right now, where the doctor would control the device and get this live three-dimensional ability to inspect. So it's very exciting, even if it's not quite nano yet. And we do hope that PillBot is seen as the beginning of something wonderful, because we very much want to go to the pill surgeon, and I very much want to go to smaller sizes and to other parts of the body.
Excellent. And I remember a movie, Inner Space, in which the actors and the actress, both of them are traversing through the body through some as a tiny particle.
But that movie, Inner Space, that's really my direct inspiration. I think the actor who pilots the robot, Dennis Quaid, pilots this submarine robot device inside Martin Short. And I was a child when I saw this movie, and it kind of went into the back of my head as, I knew it was a movie, I knew it was science fiction. But at the same time, I think we take the things that we are exposed to as young people, and that slowly populates the ecosystem of our dreams and maybe even kind of our expectations for our future. And so when I became an adult, just as I was leaving college, I was an aerospace engineer. I was working in experimental aircraft at the time. But I had a family member go down with a glioblastoma, a brain tumor. And unfortunately, the doctors couldn't save her, using all of the best technology that was available at the time. And I started to ask myself, what if we took the world of aerospace engineering, which is so ambitious? When we say we're going to go to the moon, or we're going to fly a rocket to space and then land that rocket and fly it back, that is some very aggressive engineering. And my question is, what if we applied the same mindset to healthcare technology? Is it possible that that mindset could make a contribution? And so we're hoping that with Endiatx and with PillBot, we have a little bit of that energy. But I should stress that as we're in clinical trials now, and we're beginning to go through the FDA process, PillBot is still under development. It's not yet FDA approved. As we're entering this very serious chapter for the company, it's important to stress that for all of our enthusiasm and all of our boisterous energy, we also have a lot to learn from the traditional community of doctors and healthcare providers, traditional medical device OEMs. We're learning a lot from this ecosystem. We're just hoping to be able to make a contribution to it.
The work you are doing is truly very exciting. But before we dive into more details about the product, I would like to start with something broader. What does real healthcare innovation mean to you?
To me, healthcare innovation means let's look at the reality of today, and let's ask ourselves if we can change the actual boots on the ground experience for a patient or a doctor or a family member, hospital, insurance provider, for a stakeholder. But let's focus on patients because I think that's the most sacred place to begin. What was the patient experience like when, say, they got their upper endoscopy? And many of them tell me that they have been to a hospital 3, 4, 5 times with their GI symptoms before they get this procedure. And when we speak to the insurance providers, we hear stories of tens of thousands of dollars being paid out for all of these healthcare visits that ultimately culminates in the upper endoscopy procedure. And the patients often say, wow, I felt like it took me months to get to this resolution. And indeed, in the United Kingdom, there are more than 400,000 people on a roughly 18-month wait list for upper endoscopy procedures. And so that's a very simple view, but it should stress that modern healthcare, while amazing and powerful, is metered out to the population in a relatively frustrating way sometimes. The accessibility of it, the cost of it when you add up all the costs, can be a little bit frustrating. And so for us with healthcare innovation, it's very simple. If I could take 6 months of hospital visits, if I could take tens of thousands of dollars of money that was spent, could we transform that into a 10-minute Zoom call from home? Could that entire ecosystem, that entire experience for some patients, could that just become as simple as saying to your home audio, Alexa, my tummy hurts? And Alexa might say, well, we're connected to, say, Amazon Health. And we actually have a product that could arrive on your doorstep in 2 hours. If you skipped your lunch already, maybe drink some water and swallow a PillBot. And maybe within minutes, you'll have a resolution on why you felt that way. And hopefully it's something simple, or maybe your stomach is healthy and now we learn this problem is elsewhere. But for us, it's very measurable. Healthcare innovation means turning months of waiting into minutes of waiting, turning tens of thousands of dollars of expense into a couple $100 of expense. Maybe in the future it could be much less, but we see orders of magnitude worth of opportunity here.
Yeah. So, but do you see that the healthcare startup ecosystem is doing enough to support all this innovation, or are we missing something? Is there an improvement in mindset required?
I think that I will be honest. I consider myself a disruptive innovator. I very much want to change the status quo. And there have been times when I was younger when I probably would have come across as maybe even so energetic that some people might feel, hey, this is disrespectful to the hard work that other people have done. And so, in my present frame of mind, I think that it's important to recognize that we can do better, but the lessons from the past and the realities of today also have a lot to teach us. And so, if we actually want to create products that can become life saving tools, we need to learn how to listen to other people's feedback and bring the whole ecosystem together. Right now, we're very proud that for all of the engineering that we're doing, we also have amazing support from the community of gastroenterologists and the healthcare providers that they work with, where everyone is starting to say, wow, this product that you have illustrated as a possibility, if this was real, if this actually worked as you're saying that you hope it would work, this could actually change the game for the normal for us, and this could be wonderful. But we're trying to expose people to this product um, as looking for friends, looking for stakeholders who can come in and make a contribution. For example, we control it with Xbox controllers. I wonder if that's the best way. It could be keyboard or a touchscreen app. Do you want it on your phone? Do you want it on a tablet or a laptop? Do you want a rolling electronics box that rolls around the hospital? I hope not. I hope lightweight and modern makes sense, but we need to listen to people.
We met at your office and I visited, and you helped me go around and look at how the PillBot, the whole process, how the PillBot is manufactured, passing through all the processes. And it is really very amazing and fascinating to see all of that in real. But every product starts with a strong why. What was your why behind PillBot? Or what was the turning point or realization that led to this journey?
The why for me is kind of funny. It was, why don't we have tiny robot surgeons inside our bodies? Um, I saw it in a movie. Why is this not real? And when I asked that question to my medical device startup friends, they said, we don't have that because it's impossible. Or we don't have that because you could never get a patent for something. I saw a patent that looks like that. Or you can't do that because perhaps lithium batteries would not be allowed in this use case. Camera pills typically use silver oxide batteries. Perhaps you'd never be able to get a lithium battery to be safe in that use case. Um, and we find that while the healthcare ecosystem is certainly open to discussing fun new ideas, there's a little bit of a delta between the hard, serious rules that exist out in the world. For example, FDA has kind of, in informal terms, there's a sort of like a holy trinity of concepts at FDA that they will ask you three questions if you have new technology for healing people. They will say, is this safe? Does it work? And does any doctor actually want to use it? In basic terms. And if you think about it, those are actually very healthy questions to ask, right? And so for us, we really are just asking ourselves, can we build a device that answers that call? Where are those tiny microsurgeons I saw in that movie? Can we build a device that then passes the muster of those hard questions? And so, yeah, where's all that cool stuff from sci-fi? And why is no one else working on it? It turns out, if FDA is only asking, is it safe? Does it work? Does anyone want to use it? Then all of the additional fears that people add to the ecosystem, those are not actually codified into law. The world is not actually really truly afraid of new innovation It's just that when people have been in their careers for many years, you kind of have a accumulation of certain types of inertia. And I find that if you just look at the letter of the law, you will find many opportunities for innovation. And sometimes you need to shake off the kind of the status quo of your peers just a little bit and realize that there may be room for real innovation.
How did this journey started, and like when did this started? I saw that this is your 87th prototype of PillBot. So it started from a very big size to a miniature size. So how this whole journey looks like?
I recently swallowed the 88th PillBot for my own personal count. And yes, we've gone through dozens of iterations on the robot, different shapes, sizes, different configurations of thrusters. This company formally began in March of 2019 when we incorporated as a Delaware C Corp, having graduated from the Founder Institute, which is it's actually the world's largest pre-seed accelerator program. And Founder Institute would fit into a group of names if you said Y Combinator or Singularity University. Those are amazing high-level accelerator programs for people with ideas. Founder Institute was locally based. They had offices there. They are global. But I saw this Facebook ad that said, practice pitch your idea for free at the Founder Institute. And I saw the address. It was just a few miles away in Silicon Valley where I was working. And I had been telling all my friends for years in the medical device community that one day I would start a company making robot pills. But it was informal. I had sketches. I had ideas for the company name and the company logo. I had ideas for what the robots might look like. Many different ideas. But unfortunately, I was lost in my own fears of actually starting the company. So unfortunately, many employees like myself end up getting trapped in a mindset that you can only start a company if you are wealthy or if you are in the absolute upper echelon of brilliant, if you're a certain age, if you have certain co-founders. Many people feel that you can only become a founder if you have like almost impossible credentials. And so I would look in the mirror and I would feel like an imposter for wanting to be a tech founder. And I would feel like I wasn't prepared. And Founder Institute helped me to see that differently. When I went in to speak about my idea, it was the first time anyone had ever just looked at me straight in the eye and said, do you actually want to make this company real? And I said, I do. And they said, well, we have this program. You can apply if you're interested. And at the end of the program, you will have an incorporated company and you'll be raising money. And it sounded scary, and it also sounded like, is this even real? Could that actually happen in just a few months of taking night classes, right? But when I joined the Founder Institute after applying, very early in, one of the first homework assignments I had once we were kind of getting off the ground was incorporate your company this week for this week's module, or you will fail the program. And I looked at the homework assignment and I said, wait, really? And then it had instructions and network people to help me do that. And so they introduced me to my lawyers, Perkins Coie. They introduced me to the people that could help me incorporate. And sure enough, by the end of the week, I had incorporated Endiatx with my team. And then one of my next homework assignments at the Founder Institute was quit your job this week or you fail the program. And that was pretty scary. That was terrifying. And I actually was able to make that transition. There's more to that story, but the bottom line is I did not fail the assignment. I became a full-time employee of this fledgling startup company. And they said, build a prototype. So we built a prototype of our robot. It wasn't a micro robot. It was the size of an American football, um, and it was just a demonstration. But that was good enough. It was a prototype, and so we did not fail. And then one of my final homework assignments was raise $100,000 this week, or you fail the program. And that was likewise very scary. But by that time, I had been pitching the company every week. I'd been assembling my team. I'd been going through corporate due diligence processes, and I was slowly starting to do the things that a founding CEO would do. Um, and and so slowly the feeling of being an imposter in the mirror over the last 6 years has finally melted a little bit. I still have all of the fears and apprehensions, feeling of being not good enough or not smart enough, but I've learned that everyone experiences that, and that if you have a compelling and beautiful idea, and you are able to inspire people to join you, then maybe that's good enough, and maybe you can focus on building the tech, not dragging yourself down.
That is a very interesting start of the journey. So, as I understand, PillBot is redefining the whole endoscopy, the way it is done, and the way the results are being decimated. But what are the main advantages of PillBot over traditional endoscopy from a patient experience, provider efficiency, or clinical accuracy standpoint?
Well, why don't I grab a PillBot out of my pocket here, and I'll show you what the PillBot looks like, and then we can talk a little bit about how it stands apart from an endoscope. And this is an advanced prototype. It's a little bit smaller than the PillBots we use, but you can see that it's roughly the size of a human adult fingertip. You can see that it has several thrusters, and using several thrusters, it's able to swim three-dimensionally in a manner that is similar to the way that a drone flies in the air. And so the way that PillBot is different than an endoscope begins with how PillBot is similar to an endoscope. The tip of an endoscope typically has a camera producing live video, and it also has lights producing illumination. And finally, the tip of an endoscope also has the ability to move around three-dimensionally. It can go forward and backward, it can deflect and rotate, and as such, an endoscope acts like a moving eyeball in the anatomy, such as the human stomach. So PillBot needs to, at the minimum, also act like a moving eyeball in the stomach. And so by getting that equivalency, but doing it in pill form, now we can begin to describe how it's different. So first of all, there's the issue of cost. To build this PillBot here today probably would take, I don't know, $200. We're not building super high volumes, but in high volumes, when we go to an ASIC with custom silicon, I expect the unit cost, the cost of goods for PillBot, to actually be very low. And so when we sell it for several $100s, whatever that finally ends up being, we should have a very high gross margin. But even at several $100s, you compare that to an endoscope cost, where it might be for a full system, $25,000, $50,000, $75,000 for an endoscope. And some endoscopes have disposable components. Some are single use, but they're connected to towers. The bottom line is the difference in cost between a simple little robot pill and the traditional endoscope is orders of magnitude different. PillBot is very inexpensive. The next thing is that the endoscope resides in a hospital or a clinic. The endoscope is in a very clean facility with people maintaining it. There are people who maintain it. The rent for that facility is paid. There are nurses, techs, anesthesiologists to sedate many of the patients. And then finally, there are the doctors who are operating the endoscope. And then, the actual hospital itself. All of that is necessary to do an endoscopy. Whereas for PillBot, the intent is that what is necessary is the robot itself, possibly a little USB-style dongle that connects to, say, a connected device like a tablet or an iPhone. and then the patient and the internet. And if you're the doctor controlling the PillBot, it should be as simple as taking out your connected device, logging into the app or loading the software, and hopping on this amazing Zoom-style call where you can control the robot remotely. And when we go through to market first, we won't have all of these bells and whistles. It'll probably be simple, like the doctor and the patient are in the same room, and the patient drinks a glass of water, swallows PillBot, and the doctor controls it from a local tablet. That's probably the simplest way to go through FDA. And so we think, let's do that. And then we will add on the telemedicine angle, a little bit after, maybe a few months after that, maybe a few years. I hope it's a few months. And there's an additional layer that we can build in, which is over time, with all the data that we're gathering with PillBot, you would imagine that data can be put to use. We can probably begin to layer in artificial intelligence so that over time, rather than a gastroenterologist driving one for one every single PillBot, we could probably have a gastroenterologist in network with a fleet of AI-driven PillBots where, if necessary, that gastroenterologist can be immediately activated, pop into that call, and take over where the AI is unable to get the diagnosis done. And we will advance our knowledge that way, right? In real time, you'll have a human expert going, aha, I understand the confusion. This is what we need to do. That all gets noted and brought into the stack. And then the entire PillBot ecosystem grows a little bit. So in time, we should be able to do relatively powerful, real-time, three-dimensional visual endoscopy inside the human stomach in a very lightweight manner. It should be a few tens of dollars worth of hardware, possibly sold for several $100s. I do expect all of these numbers to evolve over time, to actually take a patient who would normally go through this very months-long process with the traditional healthcare footprint. Maybe it's just a few minutes. Maybe it's just a couple $100s, maybe for that one patient experience. And in this kind of a world, things like stomach cancer that slowly burn away in the population, we don't know that they're actually burning in people's stomachs until they finally feel it at, say, stage 4, where it's months from end of life, right? If we can create technology like PillBot, get it to real patients, and have real doctors and hospital systems deploy it enthusiastically, if we can do all of those things, I see a world where people don't get diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer anymore, right? Maybe we can take those diagnoses and find those decades earlier. Maybe it could be stage 1. And even when you get diagnosed with this early stomach cancer today, it is scary. It is non-trivial. Sometimes people amputate the entire stomach. It's really scary. So I don't want to misrepresent what we're trying to do. PillBot itself is not. It's not like it's Superman, and with this one piece of technology, you snap your fingers and no one ever dies from stomach cancer. We can't do that right now. But what we don't want to do is, by the reality of the costs and the barriers to entry, we don't want to prevent the population from having screenings for basic things. And so we think there's a lot of good that we can do. And I'll be honest with you, despite how non-trivial stomach cancer is, I do think that PillBot will save lives over time. And the thing that I'm really hoping for is, in the next couple of months or the next couple of years, hopefully not decades, right? I'm hoping it comes sooner. I'm hoping that at some point I get a call from a doctor who says, hey, I wanted to let you know that through XYZ circumstances, PillBot did save a life today. I really think that call will. And then I hope I get that call many times. And I'd like to be able to share that with the team of people, some of whom you've seen behind me working away. who worked for years to make this possible.
I think for every healthcare innovation, saving life is the main goal and main motto. And if we can achieve that goal, I think there is nothing beyond that. So I understand that PillBot is going to be very cost effective and will reduce burden on the healthcare system. But is the PillBot going to be like integrated in the healthcare workflows? How it is going to augment the whole ecosystem from during the patient journey or patients traversing through the healthcare ecosystem?
The way that we see PillBot today, or at least the way that I see PillBot, is again like the way a 12-year-old boy might think. So I picture the modern endoscope in a hospital with a sedated patient and doctors and nurses and anesthesiologists, that whole team with all of those tools. I picture that almost like a World War II battleship. It is an incredibly powerful tool that is, without doubt, far more powerful, both in terms of diagnostic power and the ability to treat. Right, far more powerful than PillBot. When I think of PillBot in its first iteration, I see it as the cute little scout plane that's hanging on the back of that battleship that can actually be lowered into the water and then go fly around in the ocean to go look for things. I want PillBot essentially to open the funnel for diagnostics and screenings to bring people from the population who are sick into the modern hospital. And perhaps for every 10 people that we screen, maybe one of them will actually be considered sick and will come to the hospital. And perhaps maybe 9 out of 10 of those people may have their symptoms or their issues resolved without actually having to challenge the logistics of the healthcare system. And so there might be opportunities to expand access to care while also reducing the crowding and the heavy footprint problems of modern healthcare.
What is the life cycle of a PillBot once it is swallowed? Is it like how it is disposed, biodegradable?
So for a given PillBot, it would begin life in 3D printers and electronic fabs as computer chips, as electric motors. It starts as a biocompatible 3D printer resin, as a UV cured glue. It starts as beads of polycarbonate that we injection mold into nose cones. I'm imagining in my head a beautiful animation where all these things come together. PillBot is born here in Hayward, California, in Silicon Valley, currently as a research and development device that is then headed for clinical trials. A PillBot will ultimately get packaged, and it will then have a shelf life. And so this packaged PillBot will find its way, say, to one of our clinical sites. PillBot will be opened up. It will be activated using a bright light right now. We have a little photodiode, and you shine a bright light at PillBot, and it wakes up. PillBot is activated. It comes alive. We do some health checks to see if the robot is alive and healthy. And then PillBot is swallowed by a patient who has skipped their breakfast that day and who was willing to drink a pretty large amount of water. Like, I'd say like 2 pints of water is probably like more or less like the minimum that I would recommend, but I leave it to the doctors to come up with the exact amount for a given patient. The fun part lasts 5 or 10 minutes. PillBot is activated, swallowed, and for 5 or 10 minutes, a gastroenterologist will be driving PillBot around inside the human stomach. And PillBot will be looking for the exact same things that a gastroenterologist is looking for with the endoscope. We're going to want to visualize the pylorus. We're going to want to see the fundus, the greater curvature, the lesser curvature. We're going to want to see the incisura. We're going to want to see the cardia. We're going to be looking at the stomach mucosa. We'll be we are transmitting live video But each frame of that live video is a picture. And in those pictures, we're trying to get at least 7 anatomical landmarks, typically, that represent the diagnostic results of an EGD, which is a report that that doctor can write with those pictures attached to it, saying, hopefully most of the time, this patient's stomach looks quite healthy, and we're not seeing any specific problems. But if we see ulcers or lesions or stomach polyps, if we see something weird like stomach cancer, possibly, if we see strange bundles of blood vessels that look unhealthily formed, there are all these visual things that PillBot can discover that ultimately represent kind of like equivalent visual diagnostic power to an endoscope. And so in this 5 or 10 minutes that we activate PillBot, hopefully we do the job of the upper endoscopy, or at least enough of the job to justify its use, right? Because there's always, there are finer points we could go into, but for a first pass, I feel good describing it this way. And so for 5 or 10 minutes, we do an active procedure. Then, once we're done, we permanently switch PillBot off, and PillBot just goes to permanent sleep. And a day or so later, the patient is going to go to the bathroom, and they can go ahead and flush PillBot as if it were any other camera pill. And then at the local wastewater plant, they have screens and mechanisms by which things like camera pills or other items that were flushed down the toilet inappropriately, those objects get caught in screens and ultimately typically go to a landfill, which is an appropriate place for a few grams of e-waste. And so this is the life cycle of PillBot, is hopefully built relatively inexpensively, hopefully deployed to a patient in such a way that that patient experience is a little bit easier and more fun, maybe a little bit faster. You don't have to be sedated to swallow a little pill. There are some pluses, and hopefully it's getting equivalent diagnostic results for the conditions that the gastroenterologist was interested in, and hopefully ultimately is appropriately disposed. But there's no need for a patient or a nurse or a doctor to go digging in the toilet to go find it. All of the value that we create with PillBot comes from the robot in the form of that live video feed, all of the telemetry being broadcast through the human body with some very interesting work that we've done in radio frequency, some very interesting image compression work that we're very proud of. All of that telemetry and data is brought through the human body. That goes appropriately to the cloud, and that's where you basically try to create a HIPAA-compliant ecosystem where all of this data can add to the data that we need to advance our understanding of healthcare, and also get that to the doctor so that they have what they need, and hopefully to the patient as well, so that the day of the procedure, there's no reason that that patient should not have that video recording. They should be able to visualize that themselves. But one thing I want to be clear is, as the co-founder, what I'm speaking about right now is what my hopes, my dreams, what is possible with PillBot. For our first product, I would expect it's going to be simplified. We might not get every feature in from the very beginning. We're just trying to get this concept of PillBot into product form through clinical trials and out into the market. If we can do that and establish that as our foundation, then we have a huge amount of beautiful things we can do after that.
Okay, so since the PillBot is swallowed, it goes inside the body. Can you say with complete confidence that PillBot is safe for patient? What kind of testing or safeguards are in place?
Well, thank you for that question, and I heard you. I heard you very carefully. Can you say with complete confidence that PillBot is safe? Absolutely not. Right? Complete confidence is 100%. I will tell you that each of the engineers at Endiatx, led by our amazing head of manufacturing, who's actually doing many other things now, Tomas Frager Silva, amazing guy. Each of us has actually been given homework assignments where we read through the FDA's MOD database for incidents where we've had problems with camera pills that have been swallowed, because a camera pill um, is similar in size and shape and material um, to a PillBot. There are differences, but there are many similarities. And so when you read through the entire history of reports of any problem that ever happened with a camera pill, you will find that, when you put hundreds of thousands or millions of electronic capsules through human bodies at a population level, things do happen, right? And these are things that keep us up at night. These are the things that we go home and we wake up and we have worries. We also have ideas, right? We come into the office going, holy cow, I think I have a way that we could improve or even solve this kind of problem, right? So let's talk about problems. If you swallow an object, you hope that object goes through your body and leaves your body. Sometimes objects will get stuck. And I think if you swallowed some highly inappropriate object, like, I don't know, your keychain or something, yeah, maybe that would get stuck. But for something like a camera pill, for the vast majority of people, their bodies can very easily transmit that from one end to the other. It's for people who have history of obstruction in their GI tract, strictures, previous surgeries of a certain type, resections. For people in that population, we take a much closer look at whether or not it's appropriate for someone like that to swallow a camera pill or to swallow a PillBot. And over the decades since camera pills were introduced, I think FDA clearance was 2001, we've gotten really good at pre-identifying who's a candidate and who's not a candidate. So I can say that by following those same guidelines, we're able to reduce the retention rate that you would expect to acceptable levels. And this is such a crazy question. I just said acceptable levels of retention rates. I mean, why is the acceptable level not 0, right? And the simple answer is that for many things in healthcare technology, you have this terrible balance that you're trying to strike. It's not terrible, but the severity is terrible, and you're weighing these pluses and minuses. Could we drastically expand access? Could we lower costs? Could we catch cancers years earlier and possibly have higher rates of curing for those earlier caught cancers? That all adds to this narrative that, hey, this is a great idea. This is good. But then on the other hand, you ask yourself, did you say lithium battery? Did you say that it's a certain size, or, do you have shapes that you're worried about? What if it comes apart? What if those components spill into the insides of the human body? Those are all scary, terrible things. And so you do this balancing act. And, well, as it is, we anticipate that PillBot will be able to be proven to be safe and effective. But until FDA puts their stamp of approval, after we do design freeze, all the clinical trials, all of that data is analyzed, adjudicated, put together into a final report, submitted to FDA. Then FDA comes back to us with feedback. We might do more clinical trials or more testing, resubmit to FDA. This is a typical flow. Eventually, you get to a point, if you've done your work well with the right teams and you've had your ears open, eventually you can get to a place where you actually have a product in the market with FDA approval. And at that moment, your journey is not done, because now you're in the market and now you have to be listening to the doctors and the patients constantly and bringing all of their feedback back into the PillBot ecosystem, right? And this is how, if you do it right, you can actually do some wonderful evolution over time, and you'll see products improve. I certainly hope to see PillBot go through multiple generations. I will tell you that every PillBot we've ever made here was simultaneously a thing of beauty, in the sense that it's something we were very proud of and we worked very hard to achieve. But it was also also an assembly of terrible compromises that kept us up at night. Like, my goodness, I wish I had a smaller electric motor, or I wish that I could do my computation, all my electronics, with a lower rate of electrical current demand. I wish that I had more radio bandwidth, more data that I could get through human tissue for better quality live video, right? Every PillBot that's ever been made is this collection of compromises. And so I'm hoping that this team goes on to get product number one into the market, either PillBot or one of the other amazing devices that's part of our growing ecosystem of technology that we're creating, establishes us as a reputable medical device OEM, and then just gets to go through an evolutionary conversation with the patients and the doctors out in the world, because we see amazing opportunity to help people. It's incredibly fun. It's challenging. And if we do it right, we think we can actually make a contribution. But the instant that we ever get arrogant, or we close our ears or our eyes, we lose the right to be a part of that conversation.
Right. So how far are you from the FDA clearance?
Well, this is where I can only estimate, but I believe that we will have a product in the marketplace, probably on the order of, say, perhaps 18 months from now. Maybe sooner would be great. Maybe later could be reasonable, right? And then, is that product PillBot swimming around, or is it one of the other ones that are sort of internal evolutions of PillBot? All I can really say right now is that the adventure of ideating PillBot, bringing it to its current state, assembling the team and the cohort of doctors and healthcare providers that we're working with now, that adventure has produced an amazing ecosystem of technology that we are very excited and proud of. And so I think that within 18 months, we better have something to market. That something will probably be humble compared to some of our highest aspirations, but I guarantee you it will have some new capabilities that are unprecedented in the current healthcare ecosystem. And so we're very excited about it. But I think I will only really be satisfied once several generations of Endiatx products have made it to market and have really undergone some evolutionary process. Because while we talk about PillBot, you can imagine that I'm thinking about pill surgeon, right? You can imagine that I'm dreaming of the microsurgeon, right? My personal ambitions are to go as far as we can go. I feel like, obviously, I can't go back in time and save my Aunt Katie from that brain tumor. She and many others have been lost. But at some point, a piece of technology that we have created or touched, I think maybe will be able to save someone in a situation like that. And that's the thing that kind of keeps me going, is just this idea, like this concept, oh, you have an inoperable brain tumor. Well, how many of our rice grain sized surgical robots are chewing away at it right now, right? Maybe there could be half a dozen working in concert to attack this tumor that can't be reached with other methods. And it's so important, to add to this, that targeted immune therapies, where you can unmask cancer that had previously been hiding from a patient's immune system, is an incredible way to handle cancers, and is so much more elegant than this clunky robotic object that we're working on. Because with unmasking and exposing to the immune system, you almost activate the body's true nanobots, the blood cell, the white blood cells that go actually attack things at the cellular level. That's nanorobotics, right? With a biological component. Those are our peers and collaborators. But as long as we live in a world where a human is sedated, laid on a table, and cut open and cut into, and surgery is done from the outside in, as long as that occurs in the world of humanity, we think that tiny robots may very well be able to be the tip of that spear. And so perhaps one day we will do a handshake at the molecular level with mechanical technology, interfacing with biological technology, with those white blood cells and other immune agents. Um, and I think that's amazing. Will I live to see it? I hope so. Will I be able to build that nanobot? Almost certainly not. But maybe it could be someone that we inspire, right? Maybe it could be a young student who is exposed to these kind of podcasts or sees this technology in action, who then goes off to study and learn the skills they need to follow their dreams, which have been affected by our dreams. And that's really the ecosystem that we're hoping to be a part of.
It is really exciting, and it seems like I'm in a science fiction movie, and you are talking about all the future which is coming along. And definitely in our lifetime, we'll see some of that coming true. And seems that a lot has been done in your journey, and lot will be done. Let's talk a little bit more about, like, everyone is talking about AI in the healthcare. How you are embracing AI in the PillBot technology and the technologies which you are building right now.
We're really envisioning artificial intelligence in the PillBot ecosystem in two ways. In the one first, most obvious way, uh, PillBot is driven by a highly trained doctor today. That took a lot of work to create that doctor. And that doctor only has two hands, two eyeballs, two hemispheres of their brain. That doctor can only treat one person at a time. With artificial intelligence, we can begin to take the doctor's fingertips and digitize those motions. We can take the doctor's intent and we can take the sum of the doctor's knowledge, and indeed the sum of all doctors' knowledge, and we can allow that to take over the steering wheel, so to speak. And so we don't actually remove the doctor from the ecosystem. What we truly do is we remove the one-to-one chain traditionally tying one doctor to one patient in one physical location in one moment in time. That is a constraint that makes healthcare very inaccessible to some. It makes healthcare very unaffordable to some. And it's those constraints that we think artificial intelligence in step one can obviously start to do for us. And the neat thing is that the physician doesn't go away. It's just that now we see them as a physician scientist, because instead of being the bus driver or the plumber, all of their training and all of their experience can now actually be freed up from some of the menial labor. And that expert is now available to advance the state of the art, hopefully working on things that they're very passionate about in this field that maybe they're distracted from when they're just pushing things around all day. So we're very excited about this concept of taking one doctor and turning them into like a superstar version of themselves with all of these AI tools assisting them at their disposal. And then when we have problems at the individual robot level, these doctors can be called in to save the day, right? So that's one side of it. Yes, AI can take a menial thing and it can automate it and therefore make that thing much more accessible to the population. However, the other side of this equation, which we've touched on a little bit earlier, is what is AI and how do we create artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is born in the sea of data, right? Artificial intelligence comes from the vast pool of data, both from human experiences and just perhaps exposure to the natural world. And if we said that data for artificial intelligence purposes in the GI tract traditionally comes from the tip of an endoscope, that means that we're saying that data relevant to us is very expensive and very difficult to obtain. And that means that we have traditionally been incredibly limited in our access to the data that we need to create the AI tools for the present and for the future. And so, if I told you that I believe that we have identified the fountain of data, the fountain of cheap, accessible data in the human body, um, and that the name of the fountain of that data is PillBot, I think that we might be able to start a very fun conversation, because all of the data coming off of these robots, if we do it right, can be added to this pool, and our ability to build artificial intelligence, both in terms of simple tools, but then perhaps increasingly complex tools, I think we're on the verge of something incredible. And the simple thing that was needed to unlock it was just evaporating the barrier between the world that is outside of the human body and the world inside the human body. PillBot is this agent that can cross between those worlds relatively effortlessly, and that's something that has us very excited at the moment.
Before we wrap up, we talked about the future of technology and what are your dreams taking PillBot and the related technologies going forward. So, what would be your like final word to the young innovators and the dreamers who are thinking something PillBot plus plus or something which is unachievable looking right now, but it can be achieved in future. So, what is your 2 cent? What are your 2 cents or your advice to those people?
My advice would be to not be afraid of being afraid. When my team starts a company or goes after a new adventure, we never ask ourselves, what's an opportunity out in the world that could be unlocked relatively easily? For example, taxis. You call a taxi company and it's kind of clunky and disorganized. Or you do Uber or Lyft and you realize, wow, that was much more convenient. In my mind, that represents, I don't want to bring those companies down, but I will tell you that Uber and Lyft do not excite me. I don't feel like Uber and Lyft are like, that's not the kind of change the world that I want to be involved in. When we start a company, we ask ourselves, what is the hardest possible thing that we could possibly do? What is the most outrageous thing that we might maybe have a chance of success at? And what kind of opportunities would that unlock if we were successful? And so 6 years ago, we sat down and we asked ourselves, what if we could build a tiny robot that could move independently under its own power inside the human body, with no connection to a hospital or a piece of capital equipment of any kind, that could do it anywhere on the planet and could be controlled by someone else anywhere on the planet or off the planet? If we could build that, even though it's really, really hard 6 years ago, really, really hard, and maybe even impossible, but maybe possible, if we could build that, what kind of opportunities could that unlock? And that has been the PillBot adventure. And so I would encourage young people, or simply people who are very enthusiastic about an idea, to not just be constrained by what's the smallest amount of effort I can put in to get the biggest possible reward. That's just not our frame of reference. For us, it's what is the hardest thing that you think you might be capable of achieving? Do that world-changing hard thing, and let your adventure trying to make that thing real come to define who you are, both to yourself and also to the world.
Very inspiring and very encouraging to the young entrepreneurs, innovators, dreamers. So this brings us to the end of our podcast, and it was great talking to you, Tori. And I met you personally, so I've seen, I felt the energy you have, and you have demonstrated the same during the podcast as well. And I wish you good luck, and We can't wait to see the PillBot doing amazing things and saving a lot of lives.
Well, thank you so much, Nilesh. It was an honor to be here.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. And thank you, everyone. This is your host and host, Nilesh, signing off. Be good and be well. Thank you.